Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going straight into the principles of Kapap.
Sounds good.
And we've got a really solid source to dig into. The book Kapap Combat Concepts Martial Arts of the Israeli Special Forces. It's by Avi Nardia and Albert Timen.
Yeah, with John Machado as a special advisor, which is interesting, plus a whole list of contributors.
Definitely. Okay, so Kapap, the word itself, Hebrew, right, means face-to-face combat.
Exactly. And that literal meaning kind of tells you something right off the bat. It's not one specific style.
Not like, say, karate or judo with a very defined set of moves.
Right. It's broader. It can mean almost any kind of close-up fight, really. Think military, police, even just, well, grappling.
But the modern version, the system we're talking about today, that's evolved, hasn't it? It's presented as this dynamic self-defense system.
Yeah, very much a system, not a sport, no rings or referees. And maybe not quite a traditional martial art in the old school sense either.
So what's the main difference then?
Well, a big part of it is the focus on the individual. Your own abilities, what you already know, your experience. That's the starting point.
Instead of trying to make everyone fit a specific mold, learning technique A, then technique B in a set order.
Precisely. Think about traditional martial arts. Beautiful forms, maybe years spent perfecting a kata in the dojo. Very controlled.
Sterile environment sometimes.
Yeah. But then you face a real attack. Maybe at night, it's chaotic, the attacker's unpredictable, doesn't follow rules. Do those perfect techniques just, work instantly? Maybe not.
That's a fair point. So Kapap tries to bridge that gap.
That seems to be the idea from the Kapap Academy approach in the book. They want to blend the best bits of traditional arts, like understanding movement, balance, with very practical modern self-defense.
So it's reality-based, fluid, adapts to you.
And they really push that adaptability. It's not one size fits all. The book even says students should ask questions, suggest things, challenge techniques.
Oh, interesting. So it's interactive.
Very much so. The core philosophy seems to be use only what works for you. If a specific move doesn't suit your body type or the situation, you find something else.
Like building up your own personal toolbox of skills.
Exactly. You're adding physical skills, sure, but also practical exercises, effective techniques drawn from different places, and just common sense to process.
And it sounds like the instructors are learning, too, in a way.
Yeah, the book mentions that. It's a two-way street. Even experienced instructors have to keep exploring, keep adapting, because threats change, right?
Makes sense. So this book, Kapap Combat Concepts, Avi Nardia, Albert Timen, John Machado, it acknowledges a whole team, too. Editors, designers, photographers.
And it's important they put a warning right up front.
Oh, what kind of warning?
Basically saying, look, this is for preserving martial arts knowledge. No guarantees it'll work perfectly or be safe in a real fight. Check with a doctor. Make sure any self-defense is legal. Standard but crucial stuff.
Absolutely. Good disclaimer. It also mentions Cap Academy, LLC in New Jersey.
Yeah, Timen's president, Nardia's head instructor there. So it's an active school teaching this stuff.
And the acknowledgments. Wow, it's quite a list.
It really is. It shows the breadth of influence. You've got LT called Jane Peer, founder of the International Kapap Federation.
Okay, so organizational history there.
Then Dr. Yerusham Barak from Tel Aviv University, an academic angle. David Arama from the Federation in Israel.
Keeping the link to its roots.
Plus, people like Yuri Kafe, Hanshi Patrick McCarthy, that's traditional Okinawan karate, right?
Yeah, interesting mix.
Shihan Jose Olivier Rivera, Officer Robert Job, Andre Zaitin, Guru Roger Agbulos's blades, I think, Bram Frank, Jim Wagner, and of course, John Machado again.
That really drives home the blending styles idea, doesn't it? Pulling from everywhere.
It absolutely does. And they also dedicated to the original instructors.
Mashal Horowitz, Gerson Koppler, Yehuda Marcus.
Abraham Zakai, Yitzhak Stiebel, Moshe Finkel.
Yeah.
Recognizing where it all started.
Important historical nod, which I guess brings us to what we're trying to do here today.
Our mission, should we choose to accept it.
Right. Basically, to pull out the key ideas, the core concepts from this book, so listeners can get a good handle on what Kapap is really about, its philosophy, how it's different.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, so context first. Where did this all begin? The book mentions Jewish settlers in Palestine, early 20th century.
Yeah, basically born out of sheer necessity. It wasn't some formal system back then, more like whatever worked to stay safe in a dangerous environment. Really basic stuff initially.
And it changed over time.
Oh, definitely. It wasn't static. It evolved, got folded into military training, especially Israeli special forces, and then kind of came back out into the civilian world again later on.
So that adaptation, changing based on needs, that's core to it.
Absolutely fundamental. That constant evolution is kind of the point.
Okay, so we know what it is, roughly where it came from, the source we're using. Let's
Yeah.
get into the real meat, the principles. What makes Kapap Kapap?
Well, one big framework they introduce is the Kapap Triangle.
Triangle, okay.
Yeah, not like a specific technique, more a way to think about training. 3 parts: combat conditioning, unarmed combat, and armed combat.
Combat conditioning, that sounds like the foundation.
It is. The book really stresses this. Mental and physical readiness underpins everything. Doesn't matter how tough you look if you freeze up or gas out.
Right. Overconfidence can even be bad.
Exactly.
Right.
It's about handling stress, fear, thinking clearly when things go sideways, more than just push-ups. Mental toughness, quick reactions, self-reliance, building that internal strength.
Got it. Then unarmed combat, that's the hands-on stuff.
Yeah, developing practical fighting skill. But again, the Kapap way is to explore different arts, different systems.
So pull techniques from boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, whatever.
Kind of. Under instructor guidance, you sift through stuff, figure out what's genuinely effective for you in a real scrap, unarmed.
So it's not about mastering everything, but finding your best tools.
Precisely. Understand the principles of fighting, then pick and polish the tools that fit you and the reality of a fight.
Okay. And the third side was armed combat.
Right. Understanding weapons. Firearms, knives, sure, but also, crucially, improvisation. Using everyday objects.
Because you might not have your preferred weapon or any weapon.
Exactly. And this links to another triangle concept, the Kapap weapon triangle.
More triangles. Okay, what are the points on this one?
Weapon disarms, weapon retention, and weapon use.
Disarms, keeping your own weapon and using one. Makes sense.
And the book says they're all linked. When you train one, you're training the others. Like in a drill, you learn to disarm and stop someone disarming you, and how to use the weapon if you get it.
It's holistic, covers the whole weapon problem.
Yeah.
Okay, beyond the triangles, what other core ideas are there?
Relative position is huge. They give it a whole chapter.
Relative position.
Yeah.
Like where you are compared to the other guy.
And the environment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Constantly assessing, where's the best place for me to be right now to stay safe, gain control, get an advantage. It's about always seeking the best footing, literally and strategically.
They use an example, right? A police officer approaching someone.
Yeah, at night. The officer's checking, how do I feel versus how do they look, their mood, height, hands visible, lighting, my stance. All that feeds into relative position.
And it's not static, you have to keep adjusting.
Constantly. If the suspect moves, you reassess. Maybe you need more space, maybe you need to close distance. You only really master this through practice under stress in different scenarios.
Okay, makes sense. What about economy of motion?
Using small, efficient movements. No big wind-ups. Conserve energy, stay fluid. Like if you miss a punch, maybe it flows right into an elbow. Don't waste the movement.
Efficient, less telegraphing your intentions too, I bet.
Definitely. And related to that is the gyro.
The gyro, like the spinning top.
Kinda, yeah. The idea is unpredictable movement. Confuse the opponent. Don't just attack linearly. Go high, low, high again. Move left when they expect right. Keep them guessing, off balance. Harder for them to counter or attack.
Keep them reacting instead of acting. Got it. Now this one sounds interesting. Manipulation through T-shapes. What's that?
Okay, picture the letter T. Your spine is the vertical line.
Right.
Your shoulders across the top make one T, the up T. Your hips across make another T, the down T. These are like balance centers.
Okay. Spine and shoulder, spine and hips.
By controlling points on those T junctions, pushing a shoulder down, pinning it, manipulating the hip line, you can seriously mess with their balance, maybe even take them down.
Ah, like structural leverage points on the body.
Exactly. And you also learn to read their T-shapes. Like a boxer watches the chest, not the eyes, to see a punch coming.
Because strikes come from the core, the T-lines.
Precisely. Watching the up T helps anticipate punches. Watching the down T, the hips, can warn you about kicks. Gives you that split-second edge.
Okay. Then there's the push-pull principle. Seems simpler.
It is, but very effective. Pick 2 points on the opponent. Pull one, push the other at the same time.
Creates imbalance.
Instantly. Often works even if they're much bigger or stronger. It's like push a shoulder, pull a leg, or in grappling, pull the head up, push the shoulder down. Simple physics, really.
And that leads into the principle of 2 points of contact.
Yeah, they build on each other. To control a limb or a movement in close quarters, you usually need contact on 2 distinct spots.
Like an armbar needs control at the wrist and the elbow or shoulder?
Exactly. Or it could be 1 point on them and 1 point on the environment using a wall or the ground as your second point of leverage.
Smart. We're definitely seeing how these principles weave together. What about balanced displacement?
Another key disruption tactic, taking their balance. Sometimes it's part of a technique like a sweep or a choke that throws them off.
But it can be simpler, too.
Yeah, just making them take a bad step. Maybe they overreach on a punch and stumble. Even without you touching them directly, if they lose balance, you gain an advantage.
Opportunity knocks. Kapap also looks at geometric elements, breaking moves down.
Right. Linear, circular, triangular. Every technique, doesn't matter the style it came from, can be broken down into these basic shapes.
Why is that useful?
Because if you understand the underlying geometry of any attack, you can develop a defense that works on the principle, not just against one specific named technique. Makes your defense way more adaptable.
Universal principles. I like it. The book also talks about pre- and post-conflict aspects, so before and after the actual fight.
Absolutely crucial. Pre-conflict is avoidance, situational awareness, but also mental prep. Stress training, getting your head right before anything happens.
And post-conflict.
Dealing with the immediate aftermath. First aid, injuries yours or theirs. And importantly, the legal side, what happens next. The book uses an example of a potential kidnapping.
Right, where the potential post-conflict outcome influences decisions during the event.
Exactly, thinking ahead. Which leads to another practical point they include.
Which is?
Mandatory CPR training.
Ah,
Okay.
real-world survival skills.
Yeah, it really grounds it. Knowing basic first aid, CPR could literally save a life after a fight. It fits the whole practical, survival-focused ethos.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of principles: adaptability, understanding mechanics, reality-based training. It's clearly a very pragmatic system.
And that pragmatism comes straight from its history, doesn't it? Born from need, honed by the military, now adapted again for civilians.
It's like it went from a general idea, got super specialized, and now it's broadening out again.
Yeah, this modern revival by Nardia and Timen seems focused on that original core idea. Use what works based on principles tailored to you.
So the main takeaway is principles over specific techniques, individual effectiveness.
That seems to be the absolute heart of it. Understand the why, not just the what, and figure out what works for you.
Okay, quick recaps then. We talked about the Kapap Triangle conditioning, unarmed, armed, and the weapon triangle, disarm, retain, use, frameworks for training.
And key concepts like relative position, economy of motion, or the gyro, T-shapes for manipulation.
Push-pull, 2 points of contact, all very interconnected.
And the need for realistic, varied training, different environments, stress, the whole 9 yards, preparing for the unpredictable.
We also trace that history a bit. Hajomer, Haganah, Pomek, IDF, Unit 101, Lotar, and now the modern academy. A journey of constant adaptation.
Which really brings it back to that core idea. Kapap is about constantly upgrading your toolbox.
Right, so maybe a final thought for people listening. If Kapap is about this continuous process of upgrading your toolbox for unpredictable threats,
how can you apply that principle adaptability, using what works, finding your own tools, not just in self-defense, but anywhere in life?
Yeah, any situation demanding resourcefulness, what unexpected tools might you already have or could you develop to handle whatever challenges come your way?
Something to chew on.